What is up, everybody? My name's Michael, and I'm here to talk to you about what goes beyond the obvious eye. You all are aware of how the media paints it, you're aware of how the government paints it, but you're never really truly aware of how objectively something can look. And a lot of people forget that lawyers are here to help you guys. We're here to help you guys. And really what I want to do is try to break down real life scenarios, break down real cases that are happening locally as well as potentially nationally that I may be interested in. Without further ado, I was born and raised in the Rio Grande Valley, went out of the valley for law school, came back, and now I'm here, ready to serve you guys and try to do that as best as possible, right? So I'm still trying to get all this setup worked out, so bear with me, guys. Eventually we'll have like a little studio and stuff, right? But yeah, so regardless, let's go. I saw this one story in the Monitor, and it really caught my attention because it's not like, it's not like you hear it often, right? So apparently there was some guy who tried smuggling 900 rounds of 50 cal ammo into Mexico. And I thought, okay, how did that happen? Like, how did they even discover that? And a lot of the times the government or the media will start quoting things, and they'll start inserting these quotes, and it's like, okay, where are they getting these quotes from? Well, I can tell you right now, they get it from what's called a complaint. But before we get into that, let's start with the story. So it's posted on the Monitor, and I'll put it for reference, but it basically says Homeland Security Investigation Special Agencies, the equipment, guy's name was Pedro Cruz Almeida Jr., charged with attempting to enter all of this, according to the criminal complaint, just like I was telling you about. Delaware County constable was basically doing a routine stop, and during this stop, somehow Almeida consented to the search, and somehow during that search they located these 50 caliber ammunition. Now, what the hell, right? It makes it seem so clear cut and so simple to understand. Well, what I can tell you is that it's not that simple. So let's do this. Let's pull up the actual complaint, right? So, all right, I'll have you guys follow along. It's a lot longer, right? You see what I'm saying here? It says on February 3rd, 2023 at 1:35 p.m., the guy was driving a 2022 red Honda. And upon making contact with the vehicle, the HCCO constable encountered the driver, who was identified as Pedro Cruz Almeida Jr., a.k.a. Almeida. Now, through the course of the encounter, the constable asked for and received consent from Almeida to search the vehicle. During the search, the constable located in the back of the vehicle and inquired with Almeida as to what was in the packages. Almeida stated to the constable that it was 50 caliber ammunition. Additional boxes of ammunition were found in the trunk of the vehicle, driven by Almeida, which resulted in a total of 600 rounds of Lake City 50 caliber tracer equipped linked ammunition. HSI agent arrived on the scene and asked if Almeida would come back to the McAllen Police Department to speak with agents and officers regarding the 50 caliber ammunition in his possession. And guys, we'll break this down right now, paragraph by paragraph, on what exactly is going on here. Post Miranda, Almeida stated that the ammunition was intended to be transferred to an unidentified individual driving a vehicle with Tamaulipas, Mexico license plates. Okay, well, yes, I'll tell you what, because there's a lot going on there, and I'd really like to backtrack it a bit. Okay, so let's start off here. Let's start off with, through the course of the encounter, asked for and received consent. So that's very, very, very interesting. So let's put it like this. Now, they don't say, do they say the reason for the stop? Let's see, hold on. Okay, yeah, for failure to stop at a designated point stop sign. All right, it's called probable cause. Whenever a cop, a constable, agent, whoever it is, wants to investigate it further, they need probable cause to do it, right? At the point of the stop, the guy goes in, well, the constable, and will probably say, look, you failed to stop at the stop sign, whatever the case may be. What were you doing? Where are you going? We don't have the additional facts of how that conversation went, right? But here, basically, it's assumed that the cop had enough probable cause to keep the conversation going. You see how it says right here. Constable asked for and received consent from Almeida. Now, why would it say that? I'll tell you why. Whenever you continue a warrantless search, if it's warrantless and you have no reason to do it, it's basically in violation of your Fourth Amendment right. But an exception to that is consent. If they receive your consent, even a simple, sure, okay. I mean, it's not really a real consent right, but you're like, okay, I guess, and you're going along with it and you're allowing it, that can be deemed as voluntary consent to your action. So at some point, I'm assuming based off of this complaint, Almeida just kept the conversation going and just kept saying, yeah, sure, okay. Whether it was in English and Spanish, I don't know, right? But he just kept saying, sure, okay, that's fine. And it goes on, it says that he kept allowing the guy to search the vehicle, he kept asking questions, and voila, he confessed to having the ammo, the 50 caliber ammo, and he confessed to having additional boxes. Now then it goes on, that basically gave the constable enough to get an HSI agent on the scene. And of course, the HSI asked, would you voluntarily want to come back? You know, another reason why they do that, again, it comes down to voluntary consent. So remember this, whenever they don't have, at that point, they may have had enough to arrest him and bring him in. But without an arrest warrant or without, voluntarily coming back, if they ask you to come back and you voluntarily agree, you're still technically not considered to be under arrest yet. So guess what that means? They don't have to Mirandize you. So what that is you all have heard it. You have the right to remain silent, you have the right to an attorney, et cetera, yada, yada. That is a Miranda warning. Now, that only happens when you're about to be arrested. But if you're not arrested and you just voluntarily come with the agents or officers, whatever the case may be, it's just like, yeah, just come my way. Yeah, sure. No, stop. All right, I'm telling you that right now. That is proper, but it's not proper, okay? They're basically bypassing your rights. They're bypassing the ability for you to stop it at that point. And I'll tell you what, guys, another little secret. You don't have to talk. You don't have to say anything. You just have to utter the magic words. I want to speak to my attorney. Now, the trick there is remember this. They can continue to ask you after some time. So in other words, just because you say it once doesn't mean they stop it completely. No, they can wait for you to basically marinate a bit, and then they can ask you again, hey, do you want to talk? Do you want to go ahead and talk? No, just keep uttering not even uttering, just keep stating that same statement. I don't want to say any statement without my attorney present, or I don't even want to say anything. I just want to speak to my attorney. It has to be clear enough. So case law has already said that you have to be clear enough to where it's reasonable to assume that they are thinking that you want your attorney. In other words, you have to make it clear enough to understand that, okay, he wants his attorney or she wants her attorney, etc. They go back to the police department. Post Miranda, so you see what they put there? Basically now he was already informed he's going to be arrested. Post Miranda, or sometimes they'll just have you sign a form, right? I don't have discovery in this case, so I don't know what all the facts are. I'm just going off the complaint. But I'm assuming they may have had him sign a voluntarily waiver of Miranda because they can do that. They can do that. And yeah, it's scary, but they can do it. It says here, post Miranda, Almeida stated that the ammunition was intended to be transferred to an unidentified individual driving a vehicle with Tamaulipas, Mexico license plates. Almeida stated that he routinely meets with an individual in Reynosa, Tamaulipas, Mexico, to receive cash used to purchase ammunition. Almeida stated he then orders ammunition at the direction of this individual in Mexico with the cash received. Almeida stated that he had been taking part in this activity for approximately 1 year. Now, guys, you don't need to say all this, okay? You don't need to be talking at all to the government. Exercise your rights, okay? Remember, the burden of proof here is beyond reasonable doubt. What that means is the government has to prove beyond reasonable doubt. In other words, there's no other reasonable explanation for what happened other than what they're presenting for the jury, right? They have the burden of proving that. If you just give it to them, you're literally just handing them their case. Just zip it. That simple. Almeida was arrested for 18 USC code or USC 554 smuggling goods from the United States. Now, guys, you might be wondering, okay, That last part, what exactly was that? So there's this interesting concept in the law regarding the exporting of, Control Act, the Arms Export Control Act, right? Essentially what that is it's basically federal law that regulates the export of defense articles and services, including ammunition from the United States into other countries. Other countries being Mexico, you name it. The importance of that is a lot of the times people read laws and essentially the takeaway is it's illegal to be transporting these sorts of goods being the ammunition of any kind, into another country without a proper license. Now, why would you need a license? Guys, I can tell you right now, I think the policy behind this law is pretty clear. Terrorism, linked to potential criminal activity, things like that. It's the idea behind enacting laws is to prevent something or to keep something from continuously happening, right? And, without going into all the unfortunate terroristic acts that have happened in the past, this is another way to stop any further terrorism acts or any other legal activity from occurring. Murders with untraceable weapons from the black market, untraceable ammo, things like that. This is where it all stems from. And the reason why laws like this are enacted is to do that. That's the policy behind it in a nutshell, just to keep from all this activity happening. Having laws isn't always a bad thing. A lot of the times it may seem like, oh, it's just too strict, or why is that even needed? It's not like I'm going to do anything with the ammo. Well, you might not do anything, but you never know where that ends up. You never know where it comes about, right? Clearly here they're saying that he violated the policy. And without having a license to do so is really what it comes down to in violation of that policy. Really, what's going to come down to it are the issues of the seizure of this stuff, right? So, number one, what do I mean by that? Well, it comes down to this complaint. Now, you know how I told you guys I get back to complaint and what I meant by, it's written by the government for the government? If I ever said that, I don't remember if I said it, but I may have said it. That's exactly what it is. So before a case moves forward against you, either by complaint or by indictment, a complaint basically gets it before a magistrate judge, and it gets them to reasonably detain you until you have a probable cause hearing, and whether to keep you detained or not is what happens at the probable cause hearing, or to keep it moving forward. And in order to satisfy that, they basically bring all the evidence, basically in this complaint. They'll have the constable or the special agents testify as to what happened, and then the judge or magistrate judge is the one that says either it's probable cause enough to move forward with the case. If they don't go the complaint route, then they have to get a grand jury together. But in this time, you're basically roaming free, and by the time a grand jury is put together and there's an indictment issued, well, you could have gone away by now. So that's why they'll typically do this complaint route when it's instances like this of someone being arrested, just to keep you detained and to see if there's enough for them to proceed with the case against you. The big thing I want to bring to your attention is the purpose of these complaints, right? So when they're drafted, a lot of the times they'll be signed by some person attesting to what's in the complaint, and they verify that these facts in the complaint are true. Well, I'll tell you what, they're true to a certain extent. A lot of the times they're exaggerated. They're exaggerated to be skewed in favor of the government in order to keep you there and keep you there until that probable cause hearing, right? Or till the detention hearing, one or the other, basically held at the same time. Now, it's important for a lot of issues that need to be addressed before the court. Now, one of them being suppression issues. Now, I don't know what probable cause this officer had enough to go from stopping this guy at a designated stop sign to basically searching and asking him if he had freaking ammunition in his vehicle. I don't know. I don't even know how that happened, whether they were following this guy, whether they had surveillance. They're not going to say that in the complaint. If there's basically other people that have already been arrested that are involved in this entire conspiracy, they're not going to really put that in the complaint. Sometimes there'll be indictments under seal where people that are already cooperating have already cooperated, and they're basically providing this information to get people like this. I'm not saying that's what's happening here. I just don't have enough to tell you that that's what's happening here. Now it's going to come down to what did this guy do in order to trigger this whole idea that he needs to be searched. This boils down to suppression issues. You know how I mentioned that Fourth Amendment right earlier? Well, if they didn't have enough to do a stop, if he didn't have enough to keep him there waiting until an agent had arrived so that he could find ammunition, I don't know. But I'm telling you right now that this complaint doesn't necessarily mean that this is exactly how it happened. And whatever attorney gets involved with this case on behalf of this guy really needs to look at the facts to see if there's any issues that can be brought before suppression. Because if there is, and I'm sure there are going to be some issues with this stop, if it really was just for a failure to stop, right? He's going to really need to boil down and look down to the facts on what happened, because that's really his only shot in order to keep this from probably being a plea. Apparently this guy, they have enough in the complaint basically for an admission of what happened, and it seems like this is probably even ripe for a plea. But depending on the facts, remember this complaint is written so it looks like he's guilty already, but depending on the true facts obtained in discovery, the way to nip this in the bud would be through a suppression hearing. So the way it works is, and I'll take you back to the complaint here, everything that was found was after this routine stop, right? Or after this questioning, you can say. But, and I'll go ahead and highlight it in some red here, but what happens is everything that occurs after the consented search, if it really wasn't consented to, right? If it was all BS, all of that is called fruit of the poisonous tree. And that's directly from case law, right? And basically what that means is everything that was obtained from that unconstitutional search and seizure of this information, his statements, right? i.e. his statements, everything after that cannot be used. It's fruit of the poisonous tree. So that is his best shot, or probably one of his best shots to get this taken care of. Now, obviously, I don't know if this guy also has a license. Maybe if somehow, maybe he has a license and they didn't include that in the complaint. I doubt it, because they wouldn't have brought this complaint forward, so he probably doesn't have that defense. I don't know if there may be some sort of lack of knowledge defense. Maybe the evidence that they have about this guy, they're going to have to prove that he was trying to export it. Now, his post-Miranda statements don't necessarily help, because it shows that he had a conspiracy with some other unidentified, unindicted, potentially unindicted co-conspirators, or potentially to be indicted conspirators, right? There's a lot that I don't know about what he was intending to do, whether he was really going to transfer this ammunition to Mexico or not. But that is something they have to prove. Now, remember, he's on it. They found him with it here. They didn't necessarily find him with it at the border, right? That is the main issue here. So those are little things like that. His lack of knowledge, like I said. He may have been unaware of the requirement, which is basically a good faith defense, right? Probably not the best argument to be made here, just because of the circumstances. When you're dealing with the policy of the law, don't forget, it's a terroristic action or terroristic threat. When you're dealing with 50 caliber rounds, those are freaking bullets designed to go through tanks, okay? Like, they're not just any sort of bullet. If y'all have ever seen a 50 caliber round, I'll put a picture up, but they're freaking huge. Those are not just any of your regular bullets, okay? But in this instance, I think it's got some issues enough to warrant a fight at the suppression level. If it fails then explore the other options depending on discovery and the facts, right? I don't know. I don't represent this guy. Unfortunately, I don't represent him. I would if I could, to help him out with this scenario or with his case. But it seems like he may have his hands, or whatever attorney will have their hands full in this case. So that being said, guys, this is my first episode. Now, I hope you learned a little bit. I hope I did okay on it, right? It'll only get better as it goes along. But understand that you do have rights. Don't forget it. And if you've ever got questions on what other rights you have, whether you're dealing with a case like this or whatever, just shoot me an email or message me or something, right? I'll talk to you about it. We can talk about it. But that's the way it is, guys. Stay tuned in Law Beyond the Obvious, all right? I don't know what I'm doing with my hands, but they're just here. I need to do something with them. I need to do something with them, guys. But I'm just kidding, guys. But just stay tuned, and I'll be seeing y'all.